Automakers are currently pushing hydrogen combustion engines as a fast track to zero-emission mobility. The appeal is straightforward. They want to keep using the existing internal combustion manufacturing infrastructure. For decades, these assembly lines have been tuned to produce standard cast components, specifically engine blocks designed to contain the combustion of fossil fuels. To prove this swap works, manufacturers like Toyota are running modified 1.6-liter, 3-cylinder turbo engines in extreme motorsport endurance races. They are demonstrating that you can physically inject and combust hydrogen in a familiar engine format. But utilizing traditional internal combustion materials in a hydrogen-rich environment triggers a severe, rapid degradation of the engine's mechanical properties. Hydrogen combustion ignores standard surface oxidation pathways, instead triggering an internal failure known as hydrogen embrittlement. Hydrogen embrittlement is a kinetically driven structural failure. The simplest, lightest element in the universe actively infiltrates and dismantles complex commercial alloys from the inside out. Scaling zero-emission mobility to a global production line requires us to first understand material failure at the atomic scale. The process begins at the boundary condition inside an operating engine, the exact interface where high-pressure hydrogen gas meets the solid metal cylinder wall. The first stage is physisorption. Diatomic hydrogen molecules interact weakly with the metal surface, held only by highly temperature-dependent van der Waals forces. As the engine heats up, thermal energy triggers chemisorption. The molecules dissociate into individual hydrogen atoms, forming strong chemical bonds directly with the metal surface. Next is absorption. These unbound atoms slip past the surface layer, dissolving into the metal's internal lattice structure. This ingress is driven by thermodynamics. A chemical potential difference exists between the high-pressure environment inside the cylinder and the interior of the solid metal, effectively pushing the hydrogen inward. This relationship is governed by Sievert's law, which states that the concentration of dissolved hydrogen in the metal is directly proportional to the square root of the surrounding hydrogen pressure. Operating an internal combustion engine at high pressure actively forces atomic hydrogen deep into the material's core. From the perspective of a hydrogen atom, atomic number 1, a solid metal lattice is mostly empty space. Because of their minute atomic radius, hydrogen atoms migrate through the metal via interstitial diffusion. They navigate the octahedral or tetrahedral gaps between the much larger metal atoms. This movement is dictated by Fick's second law and thermal activation. The extreme temperatures of a firing engine increase diffusion rates by orders of magnitude, driving hydrogen through the block far faster than at room temperature. But commercial alloys are never perfect crystals. They contain microscopic flaws, dislocations, grain boundaries, and phase interfaces. As described by Oriani's equilibrium theory, the hydrogen atoms don't just flow evenly through the metal, they get captured. They accumulate and pool at these specific microstructural anomalies, which act as trap sites. The density and distribution of these specific trap sites dictate exactly how vulnerable a chosen alloy is to embrittlement. The very features that give commercial metals their necessary strength act as microscopic magnets, concentrating the danger into localized zones. Once the hydrogen accumulates, we see the primary degradation model take over: hydrogen-enhanced strain-induced vacancy, or HESIV. Trapped hydrogen has a counterintuitive effect. It locally enhances plasticity. Under stress, atomic layers that should remain locked begin shearing and gliding past one another. This localized plasticity forces the rapid generation of atomic vacancies, literal empty spaces in the lattice where metal atoms are now missing. Under the continuous mechanical stress of a firing engine, these microscopic vacancies slide together and coalesce into pronounced microvoids. These accumulating voids destroy the cohesive strength of the metal from the inside out. Finally, under cyclic loading, a brittle crack initiates at the side of these voids. The crack rapidly propagates, violently tearing the compromised crystal lattice apart. Hydrogen essentially hollows out the metal structure at the nanoscale. It turns a predictably ductile alloy into a brittle, failing component. We can see this exact mechanism play out in laboratory testing. Researchers at the Politecnico di Torino conducted slow strain rate tensile testing on actual hydrogen engine components sourced from Dumouriez. The first component tested was the engine head, cast from an aluminum-silicon alloy. This chart shows the stress-strain curve for that material. When compared to an uncharged baseline, The hydrogen-charged aluminum specimen suffered a massive 67% reduction in ductility. The microstructural reason for this failure was clear. Silicon particles and intermetallic phases within the alloy acted as high-density hydrogen traps, matching the theoretical model. Next, they tested the gray cast iron used for the main engine block. This graph reveals the results for the cast iron. The hydrogen-charged specimen exhibited increased brittleness, resulting in a 31% reduction in ductility and ultimate tensile strength. In this case, hydrogen interacted specifically with the graphite flake morphology of the gray cast iron, creating a different failure threshold than the aluminum components. The testing produced an anomaly. The ductile cast iron exhaust manifold showed minimal strength loss, proving microstructural morphology redefines an alloy's resistance to failure. Material failure in a hydrogen combustion engine is not universal. It is strictly dictated by the microscopic trap site distribution of the specific alloy chosen for the part. When we zoom out from microscopic test data and look at the fully assembled hydrogen engine, we are looking at a highly vulnerable system. You cannot simply swap gasoline for hydrogen and expect legacy internal combustion architecture to survive the physics. Mitigating hydrogen embrittlement requires controlling trap site density and phase distribution. It demands a fundamental atomic-level redesign of the materials themselves. Components like the engine head, block, and exhaust manifold each require completely bespoke metallurgical solutions based on their unique thermal loads and trap site profiles. Hydrogen combustion engines hold immense potential for decarbonizing heavy industry, but that potential is limited by the reality of the metallurgy. The viability of the hydrogen economy depends as much on metallurgical resilience as it does on fuel production. We must engineer alloys that survive contact with the simplest element in the universe.